Join ForumIAS Academy, trusted by hundreds of toppers, including IAS Rank 1 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐬𝐫𝐢𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻
Hello and welcome to ForumIAS. Today is 28th August 2023 and these are all the articles that we will be discussing today. Moving on to the first article, it is about infrastructure causing damages in the Himalayas. The recent Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh floods have given enough room for discussion about infrastructure projects that are happening in the fragile Himalayan regions and what are the impacts of these projects. That is being discussed in this particular article. So, the repeated tragedies of bridges, roads, buildings being swept away by raging rivers in Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, that shows that the development paradigm that we have itself is a flawed paradigm. So what happens because of this flawed developmental paradigm is that this problem is getting institutionalized in a eco-fragile region because Himalayas themselves are an eco-fragile region. We know from our study in geography that the Himalayas are prone to earthquakes. The Himalayas have pristine forests which have immense ecological value. If we are having a flawed developmental paradigm, it doesn't augur well for environmental conservation as well as sustainability. So in particular, we are going to concentrate in the Char Dham Mahamarg Vikas Pariyojana. Which are all the Char Dhams we know, right? Badrinath, Kedarnath, Gangotri and Yamunotri. So the Char Dham Mahamarg Vikas Pariyojana is an infrastructure development project which was institutionalized in the year 2016 to connect these Char Dhams. So it constitutes a 900-kilometer stretch of road. And in the process of realizing this particular project, lakhs of trees and acres of forest land have been consumed. Many human and animal lives have been consumed, and the fertile topsoil of the Himalayas, they have also gotten eroded. And the muck that is generated from this project, it has also choked the water resources. Because of this also, the problem of flood is getting exacerbated, which means this problem is further intensified. Actually, by law, any project that is more than 100 km needs environmental clearance. We already saw that this is a 900 km project. So obviously, how was this massive project approved? That is a question, right? So this particular project, that is the Char Dham Mahamarg Vikas Pariyojana, was broken up into 53 small projects, and every project, the mini project, was less than 100 km long. So they were able to bypass the EIA, that is the Environmental Impact Assessment requirement, and the project was snowballed and the project started. But there is one zone, that is the Bhagirathi eco-sensitive zone, in which this particular infrastructure development project struck in clearances. Why? Because this BESZ, that is the Bhagirathi eco-sensitive zone, it is a zone that is declared as a protected site via the Environmental Protection Act of 1986. So what is the aim of declaring the Bhagirathi eco-sensitive zone to be a protected site? Because in this zone only, the natural free flow is left of the Ganga river. In all the other places, some or the other infrastructure project or check dams have been constructed, so they don't have the free flow of water. The natural flow is not maintained in any of the tributaries of the Ganga. But in this region only, in this Bhagirathi eco-sensitive zone only, through the Environment Protection Act, the Ganga river was declared as a protected site. So obviously, if there is an infrastructure project in a protected site, even if it is less than 100 km, EIA has to be there. That is the Environment Impact Assessment. And this 100 km stretch, that is the Bhagirathi eco-sensitive zone, it was not been touched by the Chardham Mahamarg Vikas Pariyojana because it is a protected area. So it required approval of zonal master plan and a detailed EIA, that is the Environment Impact Assessment. So this zonal master plan was given a hasty approval, and it was going against the directions of Supreme Court of India. The court had given certain directions when the zonal master plans are being considered in eco-fragile regions, but that directions was not also adhered, and the mandatory EIA was also not done. Why this is happening? There are a lot of unanswered questions with respect to this project. Firstly, we will consider a notification by Ministry of Road Transport and Highways. So, the ministry notification says that challenges have come to the fore in adhering to the standards. DLPS. DLPS in simple terms is wider road. In the context of national highways and roads in hilly and mountainous terrains. These challenges arise on account of destabilization of hill slopes, and because of this destabilization, there is a progressive damaging effects on road alignment and structure. So what does this mean? The Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, they themselves had released a notification saying that these mega infrastructure projects with extra wide roads, they are causing destabilization of the hill slopes. And if the hill slopes are destabilized, if they become unstable, then the road alignment itself will be affected. So these factors have to be kept in mind in case of infrastructure development projects. This notification came out from the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways. Even then, the ministry has contradicted itself and went ahead with the Chardham project by maintaining that the highways will be extra wide. And later, when concerns were raised about this project, the government gave the reason for national security. Because of national security concerns, it is imperative that this particular project is carried out. However, if we are assigning a national security status to a project and the mountain slope itself is vulnerable, if it is unstable, how come it is suitable for a strategic road? Again, there is self-contradiction here. Then, in the BESZ, that is the Bhagirathi eco-sensitive zone, how was a road widening project allowed without mandatory environmental assessment? By law, it has to be carried out. How was the project permitted in this area without EIA? That is one unanswered question. And why was this Chardham Mahamarg Vikas Pariyojana project implemented with wider roads? Because this notification says that it is damaging the roads itself because of the unstable hill slopes. Despite this, why this Chardham Mahamarg Vikas Pariyojana had DLPS or the wider roads? That is also one unanswered question. Another factor is that the Uttarakhand government, they have increased the capacity of the Chardham. That is, it was increased to 9,000 person carrying units per day. But in the BESZ, Bhagirathi Eco-Sensitive Zone notification, that notification calls for regulation of vehicular traffic. It is an eco-sensitive zone. Still, the Uttarakhand government has increased the carrying capacity of the Char Dham. So, experts are pointing out that already Uttarakhand is overburdened. Already the Char Dham shrines themselves are overburdened, right? And this carrying capacity has been increased, ignoring all scientific rationale, blindly to promote tourism sector, which is going against the interest of the people of the state themselves. So in this context, the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Science, Technology, Environment, Forest and Climate Change that a one-size-fits-all approach to environment clearance should not be followed, especially in eco-sensitive areas like Joshimath. We know about land subsidence in Joshimath. It happened a couple of months back. In Mussoorie, Dhanolti, there a one-size-fits-all approach for environmental clearance would not be feasible, would not be in the best interest. So, the state has to keep in mind the environmental interest and not the economic interest. Like increasing the carrying capacity of the Char Dham shrine was kept in mind the tourism interest, which is the economic interest rather than the environmental interest. That is what the Parliamentary Standing Committee also says. This approach is wrong. You should go by environmental interest rather than economic interest. And you should not follow a one-size-fits-all approach. You should be very sensitive as per the geography and eco-geography of a particular area. Next thing is about the Gangotri Glacier. So, we all know that the Gangotri Glacier is the source of river Ganga. And this Gangotri Glacier is also the fastest receding glacier. So, why is that so? It is now being increased. The rate of retreat of the Gangotri Glacier has increased. Why? Because of the vehicular movement. The vehicular exhaust that is coming out of the vehicles, it has black carbon, and this black carbon it deposits on the glacier, and because of the deposition of black carbon it will escalate the melting of the glacier. Another Parliamentary Standing Committee report from as early as March 2023, it is as recent as March 2023, the Standing Committee says that black carbon absorbs more light and emits infrared radiation that increases the temperature. Therefore, an increase in black carbon in the high Himalaya contributes to the faster melting of glaciers. So, this concern has been raised even by a Parliamentary Standing Committee that vehicular exhaust is leading to faster melting of the Gangotri Glacier. The Gangotri Glacier, which is the source of the Ganga river, which is the lifeline of most of northern India, which is a point of concern here. So, what is the way forward? That is the upgradation of roads into a intermediate road width rather than wider roads in the Bhagirathi eco-sensitive zone. It will have minimal environmental impact and this would be a sustainable solution. So, we must compromise the economic needs for the benefit of environment because it is a question of sustainability. Today we can gain economically, but down the line in few years there won't be any Gangotri Glacier. How would that work out for us? It will again defeat our economic interests only. So, when we are going for environmental interests, we are not ignoring the economic interests. We are actually seeing the long-term economic interest also. That has to be understood and sustainable solutions should be taken forward in infrastructure development, particularly in fragile Himalayan ecosystems. The second article is about what we can learn from the success of the Chandrayaan 3 mission. which we will see. So basically, this article compares other successful space missions with India's space mission, and it is trying to decipher what is the reason behind the success of the Chandrayaan mission. We will see. So, what factors allow for resource-constrained economies like India to pull off ambitious programs? So, you must have seen in memes and all that the Chandrayaan 3 project, it was completed with a budget which is less than even the budget of the mega movie called Adipurush. It is even less than the budget of the Interstellar movie. So, in this context, what factors determine the success of such programs in a resource-constrained economy? What lessons can we learn from this success for our ability to combat challenges? So, in this resource-constrained economy, we pulled off something as grand as the Chandrayaan 3 mission. Can we use the same model in other fields also? Can we use the learning that we got from the success of Chandrayaan 3 in combating poverty, in combating economic drain, in combating other challenges? That is being discussed. So, is it a diversion of resources from pressing problems? There was a criticism, when we have so much problem in this country, do we really need to allocate money for space programs? That was also argued. So, this article attempts to answer these questions. So, if we take the size of USSR economy, the erstwhile USSR, today's Russia's economy, when their moon mission Luna 9 was successful, the size of the USSR economy was only 50 to 60% the size of US economy. But still, Russia's moon mission was successful in the 1960s. If we take the purchasing power of countries into terms, China's per capita income was only 22% of that of US in 2013, when the China's Space Agency performed a successful moon landing, that was the Chang'e mission. And now in 2022, India's per capita income is only 10.9% of that of US. So clearly we can see that economic might of a country doesn't determine the success of the space program. So economic strength, economic power is not a determining factor. Then what could be the factor? Perhaps human resources. If we take into consideration US, Russia, China, India, they are all massively populous countries. So whether it is human resources that is contributing to the success, we'll see. A relative shortfall in resources does not always pose a constraint. That is what we learned from this particular piece of information. But China, Russia and India. So Russia in the post-war era, that is after the World War II, during the period in which the decolonization was also taking place, India was newly independent. China also got its relative independence, and Russia was also in the post-war period, and there was reconstruction of economies. In that period, countries gave importance to science and technology, investment in human resources, and we can say the current scenario is a result of those initial investments. However, if we take the example of UAE, clearly population is not a factor, because UAE itself is a very small country and they had a successful Mars mission, Hope mission. So what is the factor? If we take into consideration, UAE is having a richer per capita income, but the population is roughly only 9 million. So it is a small country. But in 2020, UAE launched the Hope probe that entered the Martian orbit in 2021. So it is the fifth country after US, Russia, China and India to achieve success in a Mars mission. This is particularly remarkable given the fact that UAE Space Agency itself was inaugurated in 2014 only. And when the UAE Space Program's director was interviewed, he stressed the importance of the triple helix model. What is this model? There is a coordination between government, the private sector and the academic. And because of this, working together of these three entities, these objectives were achieved. So what is the learning from here? An active and capable state as opposed to an intrusive and domineering state, they can establish frameworks and procedures that overcome financial constraints and enable the harnessing of important resources like skilled workers. So, what is the it factor that is causing the success of this mission? Whether be it in China or India or UAE, it is not merely the economic might of a country. It is not merely the availability of human resources. It is actually an active and capable state which is making use of the human resources. With the constraint of economy and putting together all these in order to achieve the lofty objective of space missions. Though the private space industry is growing, the actual achievement were made by governments only, and that underscores the importance of government in achieving lofty objectives such as space programs. There is also a common complaint about diversion of resources. So we have problems like poverty. In that context, can we really afford the diversion of valuable resources to such programs? But the problem with such an accusation is that it is only directed at developing economies. Does it mean that developed countries don't have any problem? For example, racism is a rampant problem in the United States. But still, we have a very successful NASA carrying out one space program after another. So clearly, having other problems doesn't mean that a country should not concentrate on space endeavors also. And these programs also have some economic benefit. So the knowledge that is gleaned from these missions, it will contribute to human progress. So for example, if there is a space flight mission, human space flight mission, and the space agency is developing some sort of nutritious food for astronauts in space, can't we replicate the same technology? Can't we replicate that nutrient dense food in tackling the hunger problem in India? We can draw some knowledge that is gleaned from the space missions to solve everyday problems. And every day we use the benefits of space technology, be it cellular phone or be it navigation using GPS. So clearly, the space missions are not just fancy programs, they have utility in everyday life. And ISRO is also launching satellites at relatively lower cost for other partners as well, be it the private universities, private sector, other countries. So ISRO is also earning revenue from this process. So whatever ISRO is doing, it is not just consuming the tax money, it is also providing useful outputs also. So this accusation of diversion of resources is also debunked here. So what is the learning from this discussion is that the success of governments in landing spacecrafts on the moon indicates states can be powerful and competent actors. Granted that solving the problem of poverty, malnutrition is not same as launching a satellite, which is a very clear defined objective, but then this shows the ability of state to pull off something that is so ambitious. If that is possible, then abolition of social evils, tackling of economic challenges is also possible. Next article. It is about the Supreme Court going to hear a plea on minimum distance needed between liquor shops, schools. and religious institutions. So basically, a Puducherry-based liquor outlet, they have filed a case to clear the haze on what is the minimum distance that liquor vends, that is the liquor shops, need to maintain from religious or educational institutions in municipal areas. So this has been a contemporary issue because of the 2016 judgment in the state of Tamil Nadu versus K. Balu. In this, the apex court had prohibited liquor outlets within 500 meter of a national or a state highway or of a service lane along the highway. Later in 2017, this distance was brought down from 500 to 220 meters in local body areas with population of 20,000 people or less. Again, February 2018, the court left it to the discretion of state government concerned to determine the location of liquor vends. So, what has happened? Initially, the court said 500 meter is the minimum distance. Then it said that 220 meter is the minimum distance. Now it is up to the discretion of the state governments. So, this is causing a lot of confusion, and cases are being registered or the liquor shops are being fined for that. So, in this context, this particular outlet, they had filed a case, and this case has reached the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court is finally going to provide the legal jurisprudence with regard to location of liquor shops near educational institutions, near religious institutions, near highways, etc. in the context of municipal areas, panchayat areas, local body areas. Okay. The next article is about government restricting export of Basmati rice. What is it? Why is it in news again? We'll see. So basically, the government halted the export of Basmati rice valued at less than $1,200 a ton to restrict possible illegal shipment of plain white rice by wrongly classifying it as Basmati rice. So why this problem has come? Because the export of non-Basmati white rice was prohibited on July 20, 2023 because of the rise in domestic prices. So we have to be clear on this aspect. Non-Basmati export, it was prohibited. Basmati rice export was allowed. Okay, why this was done? Because the domestic prices were increasing. But what happened was that the exporters, they classified plain white rice to be Basmati rice. Obviously, plain white rice cost is less than that of Basmati rice. So they were exporting plain Basmati rice by wrongly labeling it as Basmati rice for a price that is less than $1,200. So they created a loophole in the system, and they were exploiting that loophole. And this came into the cognizance of the government. So the government has said that even Basmati rice less than rupees, or rather $1,200 per ton, will now be restricted. We have a body called as APIDA, that is the Agricultural and Processed Food Products Export Development Authority. This APIDA, though it has agriculture in its name, it comes under the Commerce Ministry. So this is the agency that is responsible for regulation of export of Basmati rice. So this particular body, APIDA, is now being tasked with the registration of any export of Basmati rice which is of the value $1,200 and above. So any export of Basmati also, as such, non-Basmati is not permitted to be exported. Now, Basmati rice below the price of $1,200 has also been prohibited. So now only the Basmati rice which is above $1,200 is being permitted, right? So now even those Basmati exports which are priced above $1,200, they also have to be registered with the APEDA. And there has been a committee that is constituted by the APEDA chairman to understand the variation in prices. That is, I already explained how a loophole in the system was being exploited. How this was found out by comparing the price. So the contract price of Basmati being exported was as low as $359 per metric ton in the average, in comparison to the average of $1,214 per metric ton during August of last year. So when we compare, we are clearly able to see that there is a price difference of almost $900, almost $1,000, which is impossible. How can the price of Basmati rice fall that quickly? So what is happening is, because the government had restricted the export of non-Basmati rice, the exporters were wrongly labeling the Basmati rice as non-Basmati, or rather the non-Basmati is being labeled as Basmati and it is being exported. So what is happening? Non-Basmati is already prohibited. Okay. So what is happening? They are taking a non-Basmati and they are labeling it as Basmati. But it is not really Basmati rice. And they are selling it at the price of non-Basmati rice. Now you got to understand. That is why the price is as low as $359 per ton, which won't happen if only Basmati is being exported. So there is a loophole, and in order to prevent that, even the export of Basmati rice below $1,200 has been prohibited, and a committee has been constituted under the APEDA in order to investigate this. Next article is about the next endeavor of the VSSC, that is the Vikram Sarabhai Space Center. So we all know about the success of the Vikram lander and the Pragyan rover. Now what is next? What is the lab doing next? That is being discussed in the article. What is being done next is PAPA, that is Plasma Analyzer Package for Aditya. So this PAPA will be on the payload. It will be a payload aboard the Aditya L1 mission. This Aditya L1 mission was earlier discussed in our Hindu Daily program. You can refer to that by searching on YouTube. ForumIAS Hindu Daily Aditya mission. So you will get explanation for that also. I had provided the explanation earlier. So now coming to this article, the PAPA is a payload in the Aditya L1 mission. This Aditya L1 mission is for Sun. Chandrayaan was for Moon, Aditya is going to be for Sun. And this Aditya L1 mission will have 7 scientific payloads. And this is one of the important payload of the Aditya L1 mission. So this PAPA, that is the Plasma Analyzer Package for Aditya, it will gain deeper insights into the phenomenon of solar wind. PAPA is going to study solar wind. What is solar wind? It is the constant stream of charged particles from the sun. That is the solar wind. So what is this PAPA going to see? It is going to look at the energy of electrons and energy and mass of protons and ions that are present in the solar wind, because solar wind is what? It is the constant stream of charged particles. So this Aditya L1 mission is going to study the chromosphere, the photosphere and the outermost layer of sun, which is the corona. chromosphere, photosphere and the corona will be studied by this mission. And the PSLV XL variant, Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle PSLV XL variant will be used to place Aditya L1 spacecraft in the low Earth orbit. So first it will be placed in the low Earth orbit, then it will take 125 days to travel from the low Earth orbit to the L1 point. What is this L1 point? It is the Lagrangian point 1. What is this Lagrangian point? We had already discussed, but I will give a short explanation. So imagine that this is Sun and this is the Earth and this is the Aditya mission. Okay, so there are two bodies, that is the Sun and the Earth. If we include Aditya satellite, then we can say that there are three bodies. Now what happens is this Aditya is revolving around the Sun, and at the same time Aditya will be attracted by the gravitational field of the Earth, and it will also be attracted by the gravitational field of the Sun. But by balancing these two opposite forces, Aditya will remain in the orbit. The point where the equal and opposite forces balance out each other, that is the Lagrangian point. Between Sun and Earth, there are 5 Lagrangian points, but this Aditya mission is going to go to the L1 point, the Lagrangian point 1, because in this point, the Sun will be visible to the Aditya 365 days. It will not be undergoing any eclipse if Aditya is viewing Sun from the Lagrangian point 1. So that is the rationale behind it. The rest of the details about the Aditya mission, the background, the explanation, it is covered already. Now we will move on to some PYQs. Right to privacy is protected as an intrinsic part of right to life and personal liberty. Which of the following in the Constitution of India correctly and appropriately imply the above statements? So, the question itself is giving you the clue. Right to life and personal liberty, which is ensured through Article 21. So, answer is C. Next question. They have given some crops and they have asked for which of the above crops the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs has announced the minimum support price, that is the MSP. So, it can be guessed because there are a number of crops for which MSP is announced. So, we know that coffee is a plantation crop. Coffee is a luxury. So, obviously, it will not be procured at MSP. So, if we eliminate option 3, then we can eliminate A, we can eliminate C and we can eliminate D, and we are left with B. So, MSP is announced for barley, it is announced for finger millet, groundnut and sesame. So, these are all some of the staple crops. Barley is consumed, finger millet is consumed, groundnut, sesame, they are both used to manufacture cooking oils. So, in that context, they are staples. That is also another way to figure out whether MSP will be announced or not. Okay. Next question. Consider the following: birds, dust blowing, rain, wind blowing. Which of the above spread plant diseases? So, plant diseases are spread by all of these factors. So, the answer is D. 1, 2, 3 and 4. That's it for today's discussion. You can find the PDF in our Telegram channel. Follow us on all these social media platforms. This is Indumati signing off. Thank you and all the best.